Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Elaine Limmer. I work as the Downtown Parks Planner with Denver Parks and Rec. We have a lot of really exciting ideas to go over today, so we'll jump right into it. But before I pass it off to our wonderful design team, I just wanted to say a big thank you from the city for really taking the time to be participants of this planning process. We really see that as the key to success for planning future changes at any of our parks. And we've been super encouraged, and it's just been a lot of fun to be able to interact with so many neighbors at our various pop-ups and public meetings to date. So just thank you so much for being willing to be enthusiastic and share your time and ideas with us. And I'll pass it over to Jay from the Flow team.
Thanks, Elaine. Appreciate it. Chris, if we go to the next slide. I'm Jay Hank. I'm with Flow Design Collaborative, and I'll reiterate, we really want to thank everybody for taking some time out of your evening to be with us tonight. We're going to walk through some of the exciting concepts that have been developed based on the feedback that we've heard from you. So really looking forward to sharing these with you and hearing more from you about visions that you might have for the Cap Hill Parks and how they might serve you better. So we'll do some brief introductions so you have a little bit of an idea of who we are, who's been supporting this project, and who you can reach out to. We'll go back and talk about the existing conditions. We anticipate that most of you are familiar with these parks based on who we've heard from, which has been great. We've heard a lot from the community. But we're going to talk about what those opportunities and what some of those challenges are that we've had to consider as we've developed these concepts. We'll give you a little bit of feedback on the information or the feedback that we've heard from the community to date as we've gone through some of the initial outreach efforts. And so that is the information that's really driven and supported the concepts that we're going to be presenting tonight. So we'll give you a little bit of background related to what we've heard to date. And then we're going to really spend the majority of the time walking through those concepts. And we have a lot of information to try to get to tonight. So we're going to move through it relatively quickly. We will try to leave some time at the end to allow you to ask questions. We also have, you'll see down on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, and this will carry through the majority of the presentation, but we have a QR code that will take you to an online survey. We're going to do a little bit of polling through the presentation tonight to get some feedback from you, get some initial thoughts about where you're leaning in terms of different elements within the concepts that we're going to present. But we would really appreciate if everybody would go take the time, fill out this survey. This is really the feedback that we use to continue to develop and refine the concepts that we're going to work on to come to really the final alternative or the preferred option for the vision for these parks that we're talking about. Also, if you have questions that you want to go ahead and present to us and capture in the chat, we'll try to pick up some of those questions at the end. Those will also be recorded. So if we can't get to a response during the time that we have tonight, we can follow up with some responses as well. So a lot of different opportunities for you to provide feedback both tonight and then following the meeting today as well. One other quick note, as we move through the slides, that QR code on a few of the slides is going to change. You'll see, and it'll represent what it's actually going to take you to, but there's a lot of information that has gone into this that we can't necessarily dive into in detail tonight. So you have an opportunity to go to the project website and really dig into that if you want to know more about, the process that we've taken to date, the feedback that we've heard, and more information. So keep an eye on that QR code, a couple of different opportunities for you to be able to kind of dig in and get some more information about the projects. All right, so let's get started here. Just a quick shout out to our partners at Denver Parks and Recreation. They've been a huge supporting, very energetic partners throughout this process. So it's been a lot of fun. We've got a lot of great people on the team representing you as residents of Denver. And so it's been a great process. We're Flow Design Collaborative. We're a landscape architecture firm. We're leading this visioning effort. We have a small but very supportive team of sub-consultants. Terry Freeman, I want to also point out, she's been instrumental in connecting us to the community and making sure that we're trying to touch each and every one of the people that we can talk to get information. She's going to be joining us here and listening in as well tonight. We've got a couple of other consultants that are helping us look at how we can improve these parks, both from water resources and ecological services. So really taking some steps to improve the existing parks that we're looking at. It's always nice to put a face to a name. While we can't have everybody here tonight, these are most of the people that are representing the teams, at least the core members of the team. We've got a lot of great support behind us as well. And so Elaine and Laura and Heather are with us tonight from Denver Parks and Recreation. Christy's going to be presenting most of the presentation tonight, and then Terry's with us as well to listen in and get a better understanding for what the community is looking for. All right, quick little slide just to make sure that everybody is oriented. We're going to be talking about two different park spaces. Quality Hill Park is up in the north. It's a small kind of pocket park, neighborhood park. And then Governor's Park is a combination of what is more formally known as Governor's Park, as well as Grant Humphreys Mansion. Just for simplicity, we're calling that entire space Governor's Park. But I just want to make sure as we go through this presentation, when you hear us talk about anything related to Quality Hill Park, it is the different site, the smaller park up on the north. And then when we go through Governor's Park, it's really that combined Governor's and Grant Humphreys Mansion. So just making sure that everybody's oriented with how we're referring to these spaces. All right, so from a timing perspective, we're roughly halfway through this visioning process. We've spent the last few months really connecting with the community, trying to understand who you are, what kind of amenities or what kind of changes to these parks would really benefit the community as a whole. And so what we've done is we've taken that feedback, we've developed some different concepts with different ideas and different approaches to what the futures of these parks might entail. And now what we want to do is we want to hear from you as to, what parts of these concepts do you prefer? We're not necessarily looking to get feedback on, I like this concept better than this one. We want to know what are the parts and pieces that you might like, because our anticipation is that our final preferred plan will be a combination of the three of these, most likely. And so we really want to hear from you tonight and through this survey, because that's going to be what we're going to use to then continue to refine and develop that preferred alternative. So after tonight, we'll have a survey that remains open for a couple of weeks to be able to get that input and feedback. And then we'll take that and start to refine and develop a concept. We'll come back out to the community later this fall to present that final preferred concept, where you'll have another opportunity to weigh in, provide some feedback, and allow us to make maybe some final tweaks and revisions to that plan that will then be documented in the overall master plan. So again, more opportunities for you to be able to weigh in and provide some feedback before this visioning effort wraps up. Briefly want to go back and talk about some of the engagement efforts that we've had. We've had a lot of fun meeting up with you out on site. And so we've had 4 different pop-up events that we use to engage with the community, present some different options, some different ideas, really connect and try to get to know who you are. And so snapshots was a really fun one. We can go ahead and go to that next. Oh, sorry. We can, this is a representation of some of the people that we had an opportunity to meet at the Snapshots event. This was one of the favorites, staff favorites of the pop-up events. It was a great opportunity to capture a lot of those smiles and get to know who the community is and how you might better use these park spaces. One of the things that we've identified, or that has become apparent, is that we are hearing from the community, and that's great, right? These are neighborhood parks. We want to know and we want to hear from the people that are using these parks on a regular basis. And so, close to 75% of the people that we've heard from live within a half a mile of these parks. Most of the individuals are within the Capitol Hill neighborhood and have lived in Denver or in this community for a considerable period of time. So most of the individuals that we've heard from have been here for over 3 years, which is great to see. And I think the representation of the community that we're hearing from, as we understand it, really does represent the community that lives within Capitol Hill Park, or excuse me, within Capitol Hill and uses these park spaces. So that's been good for us to see and hear that the individuals that we're hearing from really are the people that want to get out, use these spaces, and are going to benefit from the changes that may come from this in the future. So throughout the presentation tonight, we're going to have an opportunity for you guys to provide some feedback. So this is kind of a test case, give you an opportunity to see how you can engage with us this evening. And so we've got a poll here. This is really to allow us to see how you have had an opportunity, or if you've had an opportunity to engage with us to date, or if this is the first time that you're really hearing about this visioning effort. So what we'd like to do is have you go ahead and respond to this first poll. Let us know, were you able to attend one of the pop-up events at Governor's Park or at Quality Hill? Did you participate in that first online survey that gave us information and feedback related to what you'd like to see in these parks? Or is this the first time that you've come out? And if it's the first time, welcome. Happy to have you. We've had some great opportunities to really get to know and see individuals come to all of the events. People that were showing up new just last week when we had a movie event. So it's really good to continue to engage new people.
Awesome. And this was an easy one, so I went ahead and shut it kind of quick, but it looked like we got everybody. I'll keep the other ones open longer. But yeah, it looks like a lot of people took the survey, which is awesome, as well as attended at least one of our pop-up events, and a lot of you, and a few of your first time. So thank you.
Yeah,
you guys are
great.
seeing the results, right?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Christy. Christy is going to walk us through. She's got a lot of information, so bear with us here. Like I said, if you have some questions as we get into it, throw those in the chat or save them for the end, and look forward to sharing these concepts with you now. Christy?
Thank you, Jay, and thanks everyone for joining tonight. Like Jay mentioned, the community engagement process has been a huge part of this effort so far. But in addition to that, we've really been studying the existing conditions of the sites to better understand what we're working with and what we really can propose. So that's included both looking at the kind of big picture context, like future plans for the neighborhood, existing connectivity in the neighborhood, and then diving into more detailed technical aspects of each individual park site. But we don't have time to run through all of that today. So you'll see in the lower right-hand corner on this slide and on the next few, a QR code that'll take you to the existing conditions analysis report. So if you're very curious and want to learn a lot about these parks, please do so. I'd love to know that people are reading it. So instead of going through all that information together tonight, we're just going to talk over kind of how we've synthesized that information into a few key opportunities and constraints as we see them. So there's really kind of four main categories that we've been able to put all of these opportunities that we're seeing into these little buckets of. So the first one is celebrating existing character assets. So I'm assuming you all know these parks. You know that they have big, beautiful old trees. They've got, or Governor's Park in particular, has a great hill, 50 feet of elevation difference between the top and the bottom. Obviously, all the surrounding historic architecture and just, you know, a great neighborhood context. So we want to make sure that our park designs are celebrating and really capitalizing on those existing character features. Secondly, we want to make sure that any park design is taking advantage of an opportunity to be a little bit more biodiverse and more water conscious and future landscaping. Third, wanting to make sure that the park is visually inviting and physically accessible. So looking at the opportunity to improve the entrances and edges. And then lastly, green infrastructure. And what I mean by that is that both of these parks capture and to some degree convey stormwater. But is there a way that we can celebrate that a bit more and make it more of an amenity and perhaps even improve the quality of water as it flows through the sites? So this is really like a spatial diagram illustrating those themes that I just went over. So obviously we've got our existing tree canopy. We've got these sunny open lawns that we've heard that people really love and value. For ecological uplift, we're looking at some peripheral kind of underutilized areas and wondering if they could be converted from the monoculture of irrigated bluegrass to something more biodiverse and more water conserving. And then looking to improve the edges and entrances, and also really thinking about Pennsylvania as this big opportunity, this big corridor that bisects the two halves of the park. And then on the green infrastructure layer, reimagining and potentially realigning the existing drainage channel along Pennsylvania, and then looking at other opportunities like perhaps tying into the downspouts on the Grant Humphreys Mansion and connecting that out to Pearl Street. So lots of opportunities, but also some very real constraints to contend with. Looking here at terrain, a significant portion of the site is at a slope greater than 1 in 12, which makes accessibility challenging and also makes it difficult to introduce new program elements. Then we've also got, the amazing tree canopy comes with these kind of extra considerations around developing near them. Obviously, we want to protect as many of those awesome mature trees as we can. But in reality, there might have to be some work done within them, and that just requires a little bit more consideration. And then this is for, now we're looking at Quality Hill Park. I should have said before we were looking at governors. But at Quality Hill Park, we've basically got the same kind of opportunities and constraints in general. So shade, trees, off-leash dog use, and residential proximity are 4 kind of top constraints for Quality Hill Park. And then we've got a lot of the same opportunities as well. So celebrating the existing character assets, seeking out opportunities to provide ecological uplift and green infrastructure. And as far as improving entrances and edges, one important thing that we think we can do with any redesign of Quality Hill Park is provide a fully accessible route through the park and really think about how important these entrances on 10th Avenue are as opportunities to promote the park's identity and presence. And then we've finished walking through the opportunities and constraints, and I just want to take a moment to kind of bookend that discussion by reflecting on the fact that both of these parks have excellent bones, if you will. And we've talked about many of them: the beautiful mature trees, the historic architecture, vibrant neighborhood, cultural context. But even so, they've had their share of issues in recent years, and really they just haven't been being used as much as maybe they should. So in the design options that we're going to go through tonight, I hope you can begin to see how these parks might be transformed into more active, vibrant, resilient, and important everyday or even third spaces for the Capel neighborhood. And to make sure that any designs we're proposing kind of meet that big objective, we developed these 4 guiding principles, which, to cover them really quickly, are about cultivating belonging and a sense of community between neighbors and the community as a whole, fostering stewardship, and thinking about the parks as like that everyday outdoor space for most of its neighbors, uplifting the urban ecology, which we've talked a lot about already, and then also amplifying the character, acknowledging that there's lots of aspects of both of these parks that are really unique, and we just want to celebrate that and make a truly like Cap Hill Park experience. So now we'll go ahead and get into the concept designs for Quality Hill Park. But before we do that, we're going to run through what we heard in survey number 1. So thank you to the 70% of our attendees here tonight who took survey number 1. Hopefully you're seeing some of your responses coming through as I go through these next slides. But the way that we structured the survey was we had this one kind of big picture question about each park towards the beginning that asked, which of the following themes best describes how you would like to use Quality Hill Park in the future? And we learned that the 3 most desired uses of Quality Hill Park are as a place to relax, a place to interact with neighbors, and a place to feel connected to nature. So that's how we're going to talk about the rest of the survey results related to Quality Hill Park, is kind of in that priority ranking. So beginning first with a place to relax or passive and gathering related improvements, the most desired improvements we heard were number 1, more places to sit, number 2, space for small vendors, and number 3, places to work outdoors. And then for feeling connected to nature in the city, or green space and nature-based improvements, number 1 and number 2, very close to each other, were native grasses and wildflowers and places to sit and observe that. And then lower down on the priority list, active recreation and play. People were interested in playful amenities like these kinds of creative, kind of unusual, unconventional swings. Also game tables, lawn game courts, and then number 4 came in as none of the above. So we kind of took that to mean that there's maybe not a ton of interest in active recreation at Quality Hill Park. And then lowest on the priority was, the priority list was events and culture. And the 2 options we gave here were outdoor art installations and low noise outdoor fitness programs. So that would be like Tai Chi or yoga. So that was the survey 1 results for Quality Hill Park. Now we'll just kind of take a quick check back on what's existing on site today before we jump into the concept alternatives for Quality Hill. So I think the important things to highlight here are that we've got these stairs on the northern entries. So the only accessible route for someone in a wheelchair or someone with a stroller is this southeastern entry. And then besides that, the park offers a few places to sit. Oops, sorry about that. These 4 benches are in this octagonal shape created by the existing brick retaining walls, which will come more into play in the second concept for this park. So we've developed 2 what we hope feel like very different concepts for Quality Hill Park. The first one is called Pockets Park. The second one is called Back Deck, and they're really different in the way that they arrange gathering space. So Pockets Park gets its name from carving out these kind of this like series of smaller gathering and activity spaces. This concept kind of eschews the existing retaining walls. It removes the step access in the northwest corner so that this route is fully accessible. You can, walk your kid through in the stroller all the way to both ends of the park. And then I think the other important thing to note before we dive into these numbered highlight elements is that in both schemes that we're going to look at, concept 1 and 2, we are not showing any irrigated lawn, just native grasses and perennials and probably more shade adapted like shrub species. And also bike parking along Pennsylvania, which was identified in the East Central Area Plan as potentially becoming a high comfort bikeway in the future. So then to walk us through the rest of this concept, I'm just going to hit on the highlights. So number 1 is space for seating and a small vendor, something like a coffee cart or a popsicle stand. And then number 2 is a little collection of picnic tables, so place to work outside or have lunch. And then number 3 is a bespoke or custom unique seating element that could function, as a place to sit by yourself with a book or sit with a bigger group of friends, or it could potentially even take the form of a smaller little platform, like for a speech or, something like that. Number 4 is space for lawn games. So like bocce ball or cornhole. And then number 5 is this collection of seating areas, which are shown in these little squares, and also thinking about the possibility of making some seat walls to kind of extend the capacity of those seating areas. So I'll hand it over to Jay now to see what you guys think about that.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. A lot of information here, guys. This is another opportunity for you to go ahead and give us some initial feedback. So what we'd like you to do is let us know top 1 to 3 amenities that were identified in the Pockets Park concept for Quality Hill that you think would really support the way that you'd like to see this park used. So go ahead and try not to even if you like all 5 of them, try to narrow it down to the top 3 if you can. If there's just one of them that you think, hey, this would be great, that's fine too, but really trying to kind of narrow down what some of these opportunities might be. I'll give you a couple seconds here to fill that out. Laura, you let us know when it feels like it's.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the numbers. We've had 10 people, so I think a few more have joined. I'm hoping to get one more in. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to shut it down in 5 seconds if you're trying to decide.
And we don't mean to hurry it. We do have a lot of information to get to, though, so I'll make sure we want to keep moving through this because there's a lot here.
Okay, ending the poll, and I'll show the results. All right, Jay, anything interesting in there?
Kind of what we've been hearing. So, more spaces for people to be able to sit. I think this idea of maybe having a spot for a potential coffee vendor or something like that, I think has really been intriguing and piqued people's interest. So, no, I don't, nothing too surprising, but this is going to help. This is helpful for us. So thank you for giving your feedback here.
All right, I'm going to try to be a little bit quicker for these next concepts because we have 4 more to go through. So concept 2 for Quality Hill Park is called Back Deck. And we called it that, and it's different from the Pockets Park concept because it has this primary central gathering area, which we're calling the back deck. And it's also kind of pulling from some conversations we've had about this really feeling like a communal backyard for the neighborhood. So almost domestic in the way that it can be like your space to have like a barbecue and friends out, like on a nice evening in the summer, hanging out on the deck, sitting at this giant picnic table, using the barbecue grills, and using this flexible space potentially for lawn games like cornhole and that sort of thing. And then there's this number 3 seating nook off in this corner that might feel more like you're sitting in your back garden, kind of a smaller and more intimate little pocket offshoot of the main back deck gathering area. Another thing that I should mention about this concept is that we are working to retain most of the existing retaining brick retaining walls on the site today. And that ties in with this element number 2, which we're calling art feature slash seating element, which I'm imagining could be something that is done with like a local artist or in collaboration with Lavender Hill, and is this like fun, creative, kind of eye-catching, artistic seating element that maybe even like tells the story of the Capitol Hill neighborhood, and like in some ways represents the vibrant culture that has grown out of the almost like more historic or maybe even like stage built environment of Capitol Hill. So then number 1, again, is space for seating and a small vendor. And I think I've walked us through all of the elements now. So let's jump right to poll number 3.
Yeah, so much different, I think, approach to how this one is organized. And so are there some different elements in here that are appealing to you? And so let us know, is it the same idea of just that kind of small space for a vendor, or do you like this idea of this larger back deck, maybe community gathering space that really functions differently from the Pocket Parks concept? Pockets Park.
All right, I'll give it about 20 more seconds.
While we're waiting, there was a question about whether or not this one also provides an ADA access through the park. So I think it's something that we would prefer to achieve. A little bit trickier because we're building above the existing grade, trying to probably keep off some of the root zones, but certainly something that we will continue to explore and try to achieve if we can, while working with the existing tree canopy within the park itself. Definitely a priority if we can make it work, but those trees, while a great asset, also do make it a little bit more challenging from a grading perspective.
And I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. All right. Art feature and seating element is the highest, Jay.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good to see. This really takes advantage of some of those existing walls and maybe is a little bit less impact to that existing site, but an opportunity to be able to bring something in that makes a little bit more vibrant space, I think would be really neat. So that's interesting. That's good to see.
Cool. All right, so now we'll move on to Governor's Park. And we'll start again with reviewing the results of survey number 1 before diving into the concept options. So again, we asked that question, which of these themes best describe how you would like to use Governor's Park in the future? And we learned that the 3 most desired uses of Governor's Park are as a place to relax, just like Quality Hill Park, a place to feel connected to nature, also like Quality Hill Park. And third, and this is different, is as a place for experiencing events and culture. So we can imagine Governor's Park as potentially a much more active, activated park, but still wanting to balance that with the wanting the desire to be connected to nature and to be able to relax. So again, we'll go through the specific elements and that kind of priority ranking. So under passive and gathering improvements, we heard that open lawn areas were the most kind of desired or most supported element, which is a great thing to know, and it's not something that we'll remove from any, proposal. Number 2, more seating and unique seating. Number 3, space for small vendors. And number 4, outdoor workspaces. And then under green space and nature-based improvements, again, we're hearing this real desire for just more places to sit and be able to enjoy nature in both of these parks. And then number 2, an interest in more native grasses and wildflowers. Number 3, flower beds. And then under events and culture, the most desired element for this question and for the survey as a whole was lighting for after dusk activities. So we're obviously interpreting a real desire from the community to extend their kind of range of time that they'll feel comfortable using the park, especially in the winter months. Number 2 was outdoor art installations. Number 3, seasonal attractions. Number 4, open performance space. And then number 5, flexible plaza space. So like something for farmers markets or that kind of thing. And then number 4, the lowest priority, active recreation and play. The top supported element under that theme was playful amenities. So again, like a funky swing that like a person of any age would be drawn to and want to engage with. Number 2, lawn game courts. Number 3, game tables. Number 4, bike repair station. And then interestingly, number 5, an improved playground for kids aged 5 to 12. And then coming in number 10 was an improved playground for kids 2 to 5. So I just thought that was worth noting. So those were the results from survey number 1 regarding Governor's Park. And now again, let's take a look at what is at the park site today before we jump into the 3 concept alternatives for Governor's Park. So I think the things worth highlighting here are the existing playground. It's kind of like the only active program element on site today. And that is technically a playground designed for young kids, age 2 to 5. And that's residing within this fenced-in area in the lower corner of the park. And then besides that, most of the rest of the park is irrigated bluegrass lawn. And it kind of is a bit of a mix of open lawn versus wooded lawn. And then there are some planting beds around the Grant Humphreys Mansion on the east side of the park. And then continuing on this side, we've got the existing parking lot for the mansion. And I think it's worth noting that there is no existing pedestrian entrance into the park from Pearl Street. And then lastly, these red dashed lines are indicating all of the stairs within the park. So you can see that accessibility is kind of a little bit patchy, and that's what's shown by these light blue like highlighter lines. So they're not super well connected and yeah, just a little patchy. All right, so we developed 3, again, hopefully very different concept alternatives for Governor's Park. The first one is called Channels and Eddies. The second one is called Chutes and Ladders. And the third one is called Bands and Terraces. And as I walk through each of these, I want to make sure that we're covering these high level kind of organizational systems. So talking about circulation, open lawn versus native grasses and wildflowers, seeding, and green infrastructure. So for channels and eddies, this concept really gets its name, the channels part of its name anyway, by this idea that we are emphasizing and really highlighting these pedestrian promenades that connect users into and through the park space. Then we're also using that circulation network to divide spaces between open lawn versus planting, and creating seating along different sections of the park. And then lastly, looking at amenitizing that existing drainage channel into something more celebrated and amenitized. So now we'll run through kind of the top 9 or 10 highlights or top program elements of this concept. So number 1, pedestrian promenades. Number 2, a terraced stormwater garden stepping down the hill along that pedestrian promenade along Pennsylvania. Number 3, a flexible plaza space where we could do farmers markets or concerts or movies or other kind of medium scale events like that. And that's supported by this number 4, amphitheater style seating element, like what's shown in this picture, which kind of utilizes the existing hillside in the park and provides like a new kind of experience for seating in the park. Number 5 is expanded table seating along the park edges. Some of you might know that there's this one lone picnic table along Pennsylvania right now. It seems to be used every time that we're there, so maybe we need some more. And then number 6 is an overlook near the Grant Humphreys Mansion. So you could kind of have this new opportunity to perch up there and like take in the view below you of the park and of the skyline. And then number 7 is the series of open lawns, which we heard were so important to the community. And number 8 and number 9 are 2 different types of gardens. Number 8 is more formal, closer to the Grant Humphreys Mansion. And then number 9 is more of a demonstration garden, so something more educational and maybe even wild in nature.
All right. So we know that we're feeding you a lot of information right now. So we're going to ask you the same type of question that we did with Quality Hill. There's a lot more here, right? This is much larger scale of park that we're talking about, a lot more potential opportunities and amenities. So I think while you're answering this question, the thing to keep in mind is that having participated tonight, hopefully what this will do is give you a little bit of a basis for how we've organized these different concepts. And then you can go to the survey. You'll be able to respond to very similar questions in the survey, but you'll be able to take a little bit more of your own time, kind of think through, absorb the images and the concept ideas while you're going through the survey. So, you know, that survey will give you more opportunity to really provide that feedback, because we do know that there's a lot of information to try to fit into this 1-hour presentation. So just keeping that in mind. How we doing?
Well, we still have some answers coming in, even if it's people's first reaction, which is awesome to give us a sense. Okay, so we've had 11 respond. I'm actually going to go ahead and close that because that's what we've been getting. Oh, 12. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm going to end the poll. All right.
A lot of interest in the stormwater. That's great. I mean, I think that's something that we want to see throughout the projects that we take on, especially this one where right now we're really just kind of pushing water through these parks. I think there's an opportunity to capture some of that, treat it, make it a little bit more of an amenity. Flexible plaza space, I think, is really nice. I think that's really fitting for this kind of park and how that functions, you know, can really kind of fit within any of these concepts. But I think that that's interesting as well. That's a good opportunity. You know, we had a great movie night last week and had a good turnout. And so I think that is the kind of space that really supports those kind of activities and really bringing the community together. So, so this is good. All right. Well, Chrissy, we'll let you keep going so that we can make sure we get through all this.
All right, 13 minutes ago. Concept 2 for Governor's Park is called Chutes and Ladders. And it's called that because we have this very like sinuous circulation network, this accessible route that we've designed really in all 3 concepts, from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. But then there are also these more direct ways to connect between spaces. I saw someone in the comments mention about taking shortcuts and creating cow paths. So more direct ways could be stairs or slides, perhaps. We thought this would be a really fun and unique way to celebrate the incredible topography at Governor's Park. And then we've got our patchwork of open lawn versus planted areas, a few different styles and areas of seating, including this picnic grove in kind of the more urban part of the park. And then this concept stands out in that it's taking advantage of that opportunity to connect into the existing downspouts on the Grant Humphreys Mansion, make a little rain garden that connects out to an existing sidewalk chase on Pearl Street. So the highlights on this one are, of course, the slides. Number 2 is a misting element, so something like shown in this picture. It could be, you know, something really playful, something sculptural even, and would be a more water conservative approach than like a conventional splash pad or water feature. Number 3 here is space for lawn games. Number 4 is a picnic grove. So nice places to sit and eat or work under a shady canopy. And then number 5 is an expanded playground that sits on multiple levels as we step up the hill. We could incorporate climbing features, and obviously we have to do slides. And then number 6, the space up here is a little patch of game tables. So that could be like outdoor chess or checkers or even ping pong or foosball, like shown in this picture. And then number 7 is an all ages play area. So seeking out that opportunity to provide those playful amenities that attract all ages. And then number 8, we're calling a nature discovery pod. So kind of envisioning that as like a little pocket of maybe bird houses or bug hotels or something kind of kid and nature oriented. And then number 9, a shade discovery garden on the east side of the Grant Humphreys Mansion. So kind of a sensory or interactive garden with like kind of kid scale elements and maybe signs describing what each plant is. And then number 10, that stormwater swale that I mentioned by the Grant Humphreys Mansion.
Awesome. So Chutes and Ladders takes on a little bit more of a playful approach. There is some overlap in terms of addressing some of the stormwater, how we might do that. Certainly a difference in how we're providing circulation. I think want to reiterate that the intent is that we really want to try to find a way to create an accessible connection all the way through these parks with all of these concepts. Going to be challenging, but certainly a goal that we want to try to achieve. So, you know, what are the elements? Is this an approach that you'd like to see of having a little bit more playful opportunities within the park? Are there any of these that stand out to you? You'll see the next concept again is much different in nature, but certainly we can start to combine some of these elements and opportunities if they're really standing out as priorities for the community.
So I'm just going to wait for a few more results to get in.
Okay. Christy's doing a good job of getting us through all of this. We've got one more series of concepts, and then we'll be able to open it up for some questions here at the end.
Okay, and I'm going to end it. We got our 12 for now, at least. And if you're reading the chat, this won't be surprising. Slides is coming up.
That's great. See, playful. Everybody can enjoy a slide. So it's a great way to take advantage of the topography that this park has, which is so different from most of the other parks in Denver. So that's great. Picnic Grove, neat way to interact with the tree canopy and the community. All ages play good. This is great. Good to see support for slides. All right, last concept.
Last concept, bands and terraces. It's a more kind of nature-oriented and passive scheme, and it gets its name from like almost a geological inspiration of like bands of rock in this more urban fronting part of the park. Bands of rock there that kind of break up into more like bouldery terraces as you kind of step up the hill further into the park. So here you can see that kind of linear banding style of circulation in this lower corner of the park. We've got our accessible route up to the northern end of Pennsylvania. And then we've got more of like a bigger secondary circulation network here. So you can imagine like nature walking paths, like soft surface paths through areas that have been converted from irrigated bluegrass to something more native and pollinator friendly. So here's that diagram showing that patchwork of planting versus open lawn. So you can see here we've got kind of this system that kind of winds its way between the circulation. And then seating opportunities here and those like following that linear banding kind of formation. And then a few picnic tables in the center and boulder terraces that you could potentially like wander along and sit on as you step up the hill. And then they also work to retain slope. So here they're perching up another version of an overlook, which we talked about in the first concept. And then also a shaded kind of seating area surrounded by shade planting on the east side of the mansion. And then a bit more of an organic like geometry for the way that stormwater can step down the hill along the Pennsylvania corridor. So the highlights of this one are number one, those boulder terraces. You can imagine them kind of looking something like this, where they've got, you know, native perennials and grasses kind of in between them. Number two is that overlook terrace I mentioned. Number three, more of a smaller but still flexible plaza space, again with picnic tables and other smaller arrangements of seating and potentially even space for a small vendor there as well. Number four, we're calling green nooks. So that's areas where the bands of rock, which really would be like bands of paving, kind of where the paving bleeds into planting, and there are these little like places to sit amongst that, a very like garden-esque feel. And then number five is bleacher style seating, again taking advantage of that existing hillside. Number six is our network of open lawns defined by meadow areas. Number seven, nature walking paths. And number eight is a pedestrianized entrance to the Grant Humphreys Mansion. So if you're familiar with the site, you might be able to picture the existing like vehicular driveway. So what if we converted that into something where we could still get emergency vehicles through and the occasional vehicle as required, but for the most part, it functioned as this more celebrated way for a pedestrian to enter the park. And then lastly, number 9, the shade garden seating area on the east side of the mansion.
Great. Kelsey, you were reading Christy's mind on the connection to the mansion coming off of Penn there. That's definitely a difference on this concept in terms of how to try to take advantage of some of the paved drive areas that don't get utilized as much for vehicular space and turn them into more pedestrianized areas. So definitely a different feel to the bands and terraces concept. Are these things that are appealing to you in terms of how it's a little bit more naturalized and really tries to bring in that connection to nature and creating some different habitat? What are we thinking about this concept here?
Just give it maybe 20 more seconds. Got a lot of responses in.
And we know we're running a little bit behind here, but we'll still hang out for a few minutes beyond the 6:30 time. If there are people that have some questions, we'll be able to try to get to as many of those as we can.
Ending the poll. Here we go.
People like the boulders and terraces. That's good. That's definitely one of the differences. So good to see that bleacher style seating is kind of supported in both the concepts where we're seeing that. That's neat. That's interesting. Incorporating some new nature walk paths and some different opportunities to kind of explore through the park. So this is good. Great. Thank you again for participating in these polls. Really appreciate it. Like I said, you'll have a lot more opportunity to spend some time once you get into the survey. So I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, one more poll here. This poll really wants to think about what's the look and feel, right? When you think about the future of these parks, what do you anticipate those looking like? How would you like them to feel? Thinking about these different concepts, the types of amenities of materials, does it want to really stay more traditional and conservative with the existing brick walls and the adjacent architecture? Do we want to do something that's a little more playful, related to the chutes and ladders concept or something similar? Make it a little bit more naturalized, or really kind of bring in a more urban feel to this. So this will really help us kind of think about with any of the concepts and wherever we land with this, what's that look and feel that you really anticipate or envision these parks taking on as we make these improvements.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. We got our typical number. A little divided. Oh, I didn't hit share results. Sorry. There we go. A little divided in the results.
Not surprising. I think that's going to be a part of what we're going to have to try to do, is sit down and figure out how we really try to blend these different concepts together. I think there's a lot of really neat, interesting, exciting opportunities with each one of these. So how do we bring those alive and maybe bring them together in a preferred concept? So I think that's going to be our challenge moving forward. And so we'll see what comes out of the additional online survey and information that we receive back. We can go ahead and open it up to questions. Again, I want to reiterate that we would love to have you go and take the online survey. There'll be additional questions in there. You'll be able to spend a little bit more time with it. Try to get your friends, your neighbors to take the survey as well. Point them to the project website, go get some additional information. But the more feedback that we get, the easier, the better it is for us to really dig into that and understand what the community is desiring as we begin to refine these concepts. So I think if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll have some people kind of keeping an eye on things here, and you can turn your mic on, or Laura can help turn on mics if there's anybody that has any questions.
For now, Jay, there's a question about the timeline for the survey, and then the final design implementation next steps.
I can jump in and answer that. The survey itself will be open until August 19th, and then this planning portion of the project will continue through the end of this year. So we'll spend a few weeks just gathering feedback on these concepts and then refine into what we call like a preferred concept design or kind of like a final draft that we'll come back to you with, and then work on documenting that into a vision plan through the end of the year. And then the plan right now is to roll right into the like final design and implementation of a first phase for both Quality Hill and Governor's Park starting early next year. Once we get a better idea of what the final vision plan is, we'll be able to carve out a definition of what that first phase includes, you know, in balance with the budget that we have available and a host of other factors. So yeah, but that's the timeline for the project overall.
Can I
Go
ask a
for it.
question? Go
Yeah,
ahead. Okay, thank you very much for putting on this meeting. I'm sitting in front of my laptop and I'm looking out my window and I can see Governor's Park
Oh,
outside my
awesome.
window. So yeah, I've lived here for over 22 years and I do use the park. I'm one of the 2 people during the week that actually uses Governor's Park. But my question is this: when I do look out my window and I do look at that park, the first thing I see is a fence. And as far as I'm concerned, what fences tell you to do is to stay out. Fences don't invite people in. And I'm wondering if part of this process, these designs, includes at least taking down part of that fence.
Elaine, do you want to respond to that, or do you want
Yeah,
us to?
sure. Yeah, the fence was placed around the playground and sort of like the areas and the entrances surrounding it about a year and a half ago. As we're looking at the different concepts, it definitely includes like rethinking the fence. We have heard like that the fencing around certain types of play can be helpful for parents to have peace of mind for like young children running around. But as you saw in our concepts, we have a very different approach to like where play might be placed, but totally hear you on fencing that communicates like don't enter or something unwelcoming. So if we do include fencing, it would be to try to maintain the benefit of it for like young kids play features specifically, but hoping to get rid of it in terms of communicating any other messages for park
Yeah.
visitors.
Thank you for doing that. And it also created a dog park. That's
Yeah.
also what it created. And obviously I have grandchildren, I take my grandchildren over there, and obviously having dogs running around is not safe for the grandkids, nor is what dogs do when they're at the park. And that is they poop. And if somebody's not picking up the poop, then that leaves a mess and it creates a problem. But thank you very much, Fran.
Totally hear you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom.
I appreciate it.
Daniel, you're welcome to unmute yourself. You can turn on your camera if you want to.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you all. Really enjoyed the presentation and excited about everything that's all these different ideas at this stage. And thanks for making this whole outreach process fun. It's really been a lot of fun. So enjoyed participating. I have one question kind of specific to Quality Hill Park. And it's probably difficult to speak to at this stage in the design, but is the general kind of approach or thinking, you know, when you guys did your existing conditions report and whatnot, is the approach to kind of try and preserve some of the great trees that are in that park as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that initially in that our approach, generally speaking, is to try to preserve as many trees as we can in both of these projects. We're working closely with forestry, kind of evaluating the health of those existing trees, and really taking into consideration how we can make these improvements while trying to preserve as many of those as we can. I think we also recognize that in a change and there may be appropriate times where it makes sense to really evaluate whether or not that a tree is in a good location, or can we improve the way that this space is going to function for the community, and maybe relocate some trees. The other thing to keep in mind is the majority of these trees in these parks are pretty similar in age, and we also need to be thinking about kind of transitional trees as well, so that we can continue to expand on those tree species and tree lifespans. And so Yeah, that's been one of the biggest challenges that we've faced, and we're going to continue to work through that and work closely with our partners at the city as we approach these designs, because it is important to us. But we also know that there's times where we think we can make improvements that may impact some of that tree canopy. But I think the intent right now is to try to capture and keep as many of those trees as we can in Quality Hill specifically.
That is great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jeff, go for it.
Great. Thank you so much for having this this forum tonight. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make the whole thing. I heard just the second half of it, so I apologize if you addressed this earlier on. But I am curious as to Denver Parks and Recreation's commitment budget-wise. Someone mentioned the budget just now. Around, you know, a lot of these features that you presented tonight for both projects sound fantastic. The reality in a very heavily used urban park is that there is vandalism that happens. And just in the 10 years that we've lived to Quality Hill Park, I've seen the brick features of the existing park, you know, a lot of damage happening to that, as well as graffiti and so the slides, the terraces, the amphitheater, all of those features are really exciting. But I'm just wondering what Denver Parks Department's commitment is budget-wise over the next 10 years to maintain the integrity of those features and to mitigate any vandalism or damage that happens to them.
I can go ahead and take that one.
Sure.
Hi, Jeff. I work for Denver Parks and Rec. I'm a project manager. The top priority on, I think, both these projects is we have some bond money for Governor's Park, so that might be the first phase. But then we do really look at what's the material we're using and how is this being implemented. We work closely with operations, and yeah, we see a lot of vandalism in different places. So we really try to mitigate some of those challenges through design. That's not to say vandalism doesn't happen, but we do try and work with operations to minimize that as much as possible, and then use materials that when that does happen, it causes less of an impact.
I'll
And if
also
you guys
just,
ever see anything, I also encourage call 311.
yeah, and I'll also just add to Jeff that in the last 3 years, Parks overall has reorganized how we think of the operations districts a little bit to acknowledge the fact that downtown areas are different in the intensive use and the type of use that the parks get. And so there is like a dedicated operations team that's looking at downtown parks, which now includes Governors and Quality Hill, after like observing just like how the parks are used. So trust that there's like a team that's aware of that, and that is changing how we're thinking about like frequency and intensity of maintenance of these parks and future amenities.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add in, I mean, I appreciate the question, Jeff, because it's something that we unfortunately have to deal with all the public sector projects that we work on, and private for that matter as well. And I think we're very aware of it. And unfortunately, sometimes it does have influence or impacts on the approaches that we have to take, whether it's materiality or it's a detail and the way that we approach things, just to make sure that they can withstand it. So we're very conscious of it, and it's unfortunate that we have to address it. But we also recognize that the majority of individuals that use these spaces deserve them, and they deserve a high quality, and they deserve something that's interesting and fun and exciting. And so, you know, we really work hard to make sure that we can put that out there. And you know, Denver Parks and Recreation takes on a lot. You know, they've really expanded their ranger program to have a higher presence, and so it's really a partnership with multiple agencies and departments within parks and within the city to really assist with that. Because it's obviously not just within Denver. I mean, it happens everywhere. But just reiterating the fact that it's top of mind because we have to deal with it regularly, and it's unfortunate. But we also want to provide the amenities that really support the communities that use these spaces as well.
Well, I appreciate you all addressing that, and you know, I want those amenities to be available for people 10 years from now and 20 years from now. just as they would be available for those of us who can enjoy them within the next couple of years. And I found myself influenced on how I voted on the poll by the practicality of some of the things staying well maintained over, or the seeming practicality of those features being well maintained over the next 10 or 20 years. So that was just something that I considered as I was trying to respond to the poll.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
You.
Okay, I don't see any new chats in. And we are at 6:42, so we'll let everyone go have dinner perhaps.
Thanks for joining us, taking your time out of your day to be here. Please reach out with questions, take the survey, encourage your friends to do so. We really appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Bye.